Ever feel like everyone else got the memo on success except you? Like there's this secret formula out there, and you just weren't paying attention.
Right. Checking all the boxes, getting that degree, but still feeling unsure if you're on the right track.
Exactly. So today we're diving into a book that throws a major curveball at all those assumptions we've been fed about the right path to success, especially that whole go to college, get a good job narrative.
And the curveball comes straight from James Altucher, who actually had a pretty traditional path, at least initially.
Yeah, in his book, The Pros and Cons of Going to College, he doesn't hold back, even calling his own college experience a waste of 5 years. Bold move, right?
Yeah.
But it instantly grabs your attention.
It really does. And it's even more surprising when you consider he actually got a computer science degree, even started grad school for a bit.
But plot twist, he was secretly writing novels this whole time. It's like he was living a double life, the model student by day, the aspiring novelist by night.
Makes you wonder what could have happened if he'd just leaned into that writing passion sooner. Altucher even admits he's not anti-college, is really aware that his experience isn't universal.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, hey, this is my story. And it might resonate with some of you, but it's not the only story. So it makes you wonder, if Altucher felt so disillusioned by his own college experience, why even write a book about the pros and cons of going to college?
I think he wants people to question those assumptions we've all been raised with. Like, is a college degree really the only path to success? Or are there other ways to find fulfillment, meaning, and yes, even financial security?
It's like he's urging us to hit the pause button, take a step back, and really examine our own motivations and goals before jumping into this huge commitment.
Exactly. And he does that by going beyond those typical dry arguments about cost versus earning potential. He gets real, even a little provocative, which is refreshing, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Let's just say he doesn't shy away from the realities of college life.
But beneath that humor, he's raising important questions about the social and emotional aspects of college, which often get overlooked in these conversations.
So it's not just about academics and career prospects. It's about those formative social experiences, the friendships you form, the personal growth you go through.
It's like this concentrated period of self-discovery and exploration that's hard to replicate later in life.
Okay, but before we dive into all that, let's address the elephant in the room. He lists sex and drinking as actual pros in his book. I mean, talk about a gold move, right?
It definitely throws you off guard, but it also makes you realize he's not afraid to be honest, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way.
It's like he's saying, look, let's cut through the BS and acknowledge that these are real aspects of the college experience for many people. Whether you agree with that or not, you can't deny it's a refreshing change from the usual sanitized discussions about higher education.
Absolutely. And it allows us to have a more honest conversation about the social dynamics at play during those formative years.
It's like, yeah, college is about academics, but it's also about navigating relationships, figuring out who you are, and maybe having a few too many late nights with your friends.
Exactly. And Altucher argues that these social connections are incredibly valuable, perhaps even more so than we realize at the time. He even says it's likely the last time you'll be surrounded by so many people at the same life stage, all trying to figure things out together.
It's like this unique social experiment that can be both exhilarating and terrifying. But it makes you wonder if those pros, those unexpected benefits, are just him softening the blow before he unleashes the cons. Especially since he's not even that fazed by the cost of college, which is usually everyone's biggest concern. So we've acknowledged that college can be this wild ride of self-discovery and late-night philosophical debates fueled by questionable pizza. But what about the downsides? Altucher doesn't seem too bothered by the cost, which is usually everyone's go-to argument against college. So what's he so worried about?
Well, one of his main arguments is that there are cheaper and maybe even better ways to learn than spending 4 years and a mountain of cash on a traditional degree.
Okay, now we're talking. Everyone loves a good shortcut, or at least a more efficient route. Give us the details.
He actually uses this really interesting example of a guy named Scott Young, who basically hacked the system and got himself an unofficial MIT computer science degree.
Wait, hold up. Unofficial. As in, he just showed up on campus and hoped nobody noticed he wasn't actually enrolled.
Not quite. He basically designed his own self-directed curriculum based on MIT's publicly available materials, worked through the entire computer science program, doing all the assignments, even building his own projects.
Yeah, so like a self-made MIT grad. That's impressive, but it also sounds like it takes a special kind of discipline.
Absolutely. And that's a key part of Altucher's point. It's not about taking the easy way out. It's about having the drive and self-motivation to learn, even when there's no professor or syllabus guiding you.
It's like anything else in life, right? You
Ah,
get out what you put in. But even more than that, it challenges this idea that a prestigious institution holds some kind of monopoly on knowledge.
exactly. And that brings us to another major concern Altucher raises, the opportunity cost of those 4 years spent in college.
Okay, I can see where he's going with this. It's like that feeling of, what if I'd taken that other path? The path's not taken, the business is not started, the experience is missed because you're on this predetermined track.
And Altucher gets really personal here, using himself as an example. He wonders if he might have launched his career sooner, taken more risks, had he not followed the traditional path.
It makes you think, right? What could you accomplish if you invested those years differently? It's both exciting and a little terrifying, especially if you're already having second thoughts about your choices.
And that leads perfectly into Altucher's next point, which might ruffle a few feathers. He questions the value of a traditional liberal arts education.
Oh boy, here we go. This should be good.
He's not exactly subtle about it either. He points to research on how much information students actually retain after a semester, and let's be honest, it's not very encouraging.
Tell me about it.
Mhm.
I remember pulling all-nighters in college, cramming for exams, only to forget everything a week later. It's like our brains are wired for short-term memorization, not actual learning.
Exactly. And Altucher connects this to how we learn best, through genuine interest, repetition, and most importantly, actually using the information.
It's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually cooking a meal. You can memorize the ingredients and steps, but you don't really understand it until you're elbow deep in flour and eggs, making a mess in the kitchen.
Exactly. And that's where Altucher's alternative approach comes in. He's a huge advocate for pursuing knowledge that truly excites you, regardless of whether it fits neatly into a traditional academic category.
So it's about following your curiosity, even if it leads you down some unexpected paths. But how do you avoid ending up with just a bunch of random knowledge and no real direction?
Well, Altucher pairs this self-directed learning with a strong emphasis on practical experience. He believes in getting your hands dirty as early as possible, trying different jobs, volunteering, starting projects.
It's like that classic advice,
Eh,
jump in to learn as you go. But he doesn't stop there, does he?
No, he doesn't. He goes on to debunk one of the most common arguments used to promote a college education. Those studies claiming that people with college degrees earn more money over their lifetimes.
Oh, you mean the ones colleges love to plaster on their brochures? I'm listening.
Altucher calls them bogus income studies and argues they're incredibly misleading. For one, they often lack a proper control group.
Hold on, can you break down what that means for those of us who don't speak fluent research methods?
Sure, a control group is like a comparison group. In this case, you'd want to compare people who went to college to those who didn't but were otherwise similar. Without that, how do you know it's the degree making the difference and not some other factor?
So it's like comparing apples to oranges. You can't just look at two groups of people, see that one group makes more money, and conclude it's because of the college degree.
Exactly. And Altucher points out that a lot of these studies use outdated demographics. The job market is changing so rapidly. What was true 20 years ago might not apply today.
So it's not just about the studies being flawed, but also that the world they're based on has changed. What else does he say about these so-called safety net degrees?
Well, he actually finds it ironic that his own kids buy into this idea of college as a guaranteed ticket to a good job.
It's like the ultimate act of teenage rebellion, clinging to the very path your unconventional parents are questioning. But it's more than just irony, right? There's some real-world evidence to support his skepticism.
Exactly. He points to companies like Ernst & Young and even Google, who are starting to ditch the college degree requirement for certain positions.
Now that's a big deal. If these corporate giants, the ones everyone thought were all about those fancy degrees, are starting to loosen their grip, it really makes you wonder if the tide is turning. So it's not just about whether college is worth it financially, but whether that piece of paper guarantees you anything in this crazy job market. And even Altucher's own kids are starting to question that, which is pretty ironic.
Right. It's like they're clinging to the very thing he spent his career challenging. But the point is, things are changing. Even big companies are realizing that a degree doesn't always equal talent or drive.
So it's not just Altucher with his unconventional ideas. The whole system seems to be shifting. But if he's not saying skip college, then what's the alternative? What does he propose instead?
Well, he has this really intriguing concept called the College of You, which is all about taking ownership of your education, curating your own learning journey.
Sounds empowering, but also a little daunting. Like, where do you even begin?
He emphasizes studying things you're genuinely interested in, even if they don't fit into a traditional academic box. And then alongside that, getting real-world experience as early as possible.
So it's not just about reading books and taking online courses, but actually applying that knowledge, testing it out in the real world.
Exactly. Trying different jobs, volunteering, starting your own projects, whatever allows you to learn by doing, make mistakes, and figure out what really clicks for you.
It's like that saying, the best way to learn is by getting your hands dirty. But doesn't Altucher also talk about those essential life skills that you don't necessarily learn in a classroom?
Absolutely. Things like sales, negotiation, communication, building resilience, even just taking care of your well-being. These are things you need to thrive in any field, but they're rarely taught in a formal setting.
It's like that hidden curriculum of life that no one tells you about until you're out there facing real challenges, not just exam questions.
Exactly. And Altucher provides a framework for developing those skills, not through textbooks, but through mentorship, real-world experiences, and of course, his favorite, reading.
Ah, yes. The 5 pages a day rule. It seems so simple, but it makes a big difference over time.
It really does. It's about cultivating that habit of continuous learning, staying curious, and engaging with the world around you. And anyone can do that no matter what path they choose.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from Altucher's own unconventional journey to his critiques of the traditional college path, and finally, his vision for a more self-directed approach to education and success. What's the main takeaway here for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that there's no one-size-fits-all answer to the question of whether college is worth it. It's a deeply personal decision, and there are many paths to a fulfilling and successful life.
It's about weighing the pros and cons, understanding the hidden costs and alternative paths, and ultimately taking ownership of your own journey. Altucher leaves us with this really thought-provoking question, this image of needing brain surgery.
Right, and he asks, would you rather have a surgeon who went to all the right schools but is miserable in their work, or someone who might have taken a less traditional path but is incredibly passionate and constantly learning?
It's a powerful image that gets to the heart of what truly matters. Do we chase external markers of success, those traditional paths and expectations, or do we prioritize passion, purpose, and the courage to forge our own way?
And that's the beauty of Altucher's work. He doesn't give us easy answers. He challenges us to think differently, question our assumptions, and ultimately define success on our own terms.
It's a good reminder that the journey of learning is ongoing, and the most valuable education often happens outside the confines of a classroom. So whether you're wrestling with the decision of whether or not to go to college, guiding your own kids through that process, or simply looking for a fresh perspective on the value of education, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought and maybe even the courage to chart your own course.